So the Republican Jewish Coalition Conference happened this weekend, and watching all of those speeches literally made me feel like we are living in the middle of a sitcom. But it's worse. It shouldn't be funny. It's not funny because these Republicans are using the exact same tactics that the left has been using against us for years. And they believe that they are saving conservatism, and they're worried about what they perceive as radical, dangerous ideas taking over conservatism in our political party. But it really just seems to me like they are deepening the divide on the right as they ignore the obvious shift in ideology and attitudes of their base. Because you can scream all you want about Tucker Carlson, but you will never attack him into irrelevance. In fact, by doing so, you might just make people love him more. So hello from New York, everyone. I am coming to you live from my hotel room, so if you hear taxis and sirens in the background, that is what is happening. This is a very interesting and unique, kind of exciting week to be in New York City because obviously the mayoral election is happening today as we speak because it is Tuesday. So if you have not gone out and voted yet and you live in New York City, please go do so. Also, if you are in Jersey, go vote because you guys might be flipping red. If you elect a Republican governor, which it seems like you are very close to doing, that would be incredible. So pause this video, go vote if you have not done so, then come back and we can keep talking about the insanity that just took place at this Republican Jewish Coalition event. But first, I wanted you guys to hear that message of unity because that is important. So go vote, do your civic duty. You can elect all the Republican presidents you want, but if you want change in your community, in your city, you need to go out and vote. All right, moving on from that, let's dive into this because this event that happened last weekend, it very quickly just became the anti-Tucker Carlson conference. I mean, look at these signs that they had printed out that attendees were holding up in front of the stage. They say, Tucker is not MAGA. These were the people walking around the event, standing in front of the speakers, holding up these signs. But it didn't just stop with the signs. Basically, every single speaker that got up on stage either directly called out Tucker Carlson or alluded to his impact in the conservative movement. And one of the loudest voices was Mark Levin, who decided that actually he's changed his mind. And when it comes to Tucker Carlson, he does like cancel culture. Let's just take a watch.
Hitler admirers, Stalin admirers, Jew haters, American haters, Churchill haters. You're damn right we're going to cancel them and deplatform them. It's called the market system. They don't have a lifetime job like a bureaucrat who we're going to protect. And if they're your friend, there's something wrong with you. No Hitler admirer, Holocaust denier, platformer should be anybody's friend, as a matter of fact. You don't get to wrap your psychotic, mental, unhinged, Nazi, Klan, jihadist bullshit around American patriotism. You don't get to claim you're MAGA and America first when you're lining up with the Marxists and the Islamists and Hamas and the terrorists. That's not America first. That's sick.
Okay, so as a reminder, this event happened, all of these speeches have taken place on the heels of Tucker's interview with Nick Fuentes. So that is what Mark is talking about here. That is what Mark is alluding to when he says, you know, people who platform XYZ people like Nick Fuentes. And I'm so glad, Mark, that you are finally just being open, that you are telling everyone how inconsistent and hypocritical you are, that your values only apply to the left. Because let's just unpack everything we just heard in that 1-minute clip. First of all, you think that the market system is canceling people and deplatforming people who you disagree with. Not even people who you disagree with. You believe in canceling and deplatforming people who platform people that you do not like. That is truly insane. That goes against all of the principles, what I believe to be the principles of conservatism. You think that we should protect lifelong bureaucrats? Did you hear that when he said, you're not a bureaucrat who we are going to protect? That's insane. And also, who are you to be deciding who can be part of MAGA? I mean, that's just so ironic considering the fact that Mark Levin was one of the leaders and one of the loudest voices of the Never Trump movement that started way back in 2015. And now here he is 10 years later trying to gatekeep the movement because he doesn't like a few people and a few very loud voices. Now, I genuinely do not care if you hate Tucker. You have every right to. You are absolutely free to dislike him, to speak out against him, all of that. But your position is majorly weakened and you become a laughingstock, to be honest, if you are willing to compromise all of your stated principles the principles that you have held for decades at this point, and demand that somebody be canceled because you hate him or because you hate somebody that he has put on his platform. And that is exactly what Mark Levin is doing here. I mean, he literally wrote a book on the power and importance of free speech and fighting back against cancel culture. In that book, he said, and I quote, "Free speech is a requisite to all other freedoms. It is also how individuals and societies learn, reform, improve, progress, etc. It is how governments are held to account or adjust to the will of the people." That's what he wrote. That is what Mark Levin wrote in his book. And also, this is what he said on his show just a month ago. This is what he quoted about free speech.
Free speech is crucial to countering the government and those in power. It is crucial to sharing information and making decisions as a people, as a collective, we about our society. I've written about it often, including in On Power. I have an entire chapter on language and speech. Every true patriot should believe in it and defend it. Period.
Okay, so every true patriot should be defending free speech, Mark? Is that what you're saying? I mean, come on, like, this is so incredibly hypocritical. I mean, it would have been far more powerful and far more consistent if you, Mark Levin, had gotten up on stage and said, look, I disagree with everything that Tucker is doing. You could even say, I, Mark Levin, hate Tucker Carlson, but he also has a right to say and do everything he's doing. And I guess that means we're just gonna have to work harder to win and bring people back to our side. And here's how we're gonna do it. You were not solutions oriented. You were not freedom oriented. Your response was simply to wag fingers and demand that somebody you don't like be deplatformed. That is what the left does. That is not what we do. And yet Mark Levin and basically every speaker who took the stage spent all of their time during their speeches attacking Tucker and by proxy his audience and anybody who was questioning America's relationship with Israel or the blanket labels of anti-Semitism. Like, the label that I really care about right now is product of the USA, and thankfully I don't have to worry about that with Good Ranchers. Because I used to think that I knew what I was buying at the grocery store until I learned that over 85% of grass-fed beef sold in America is imported, and yet it is still labeled product of the USA that is totally legal in the United States, which is crazy. And that whole thing had me questioning everything, like, what am I actually eating? What am I buying? And that is why I trust and can recommend Good Ranchers. Good Ranchers meat is 100% American. It is raised on local farms. It's delivered straight to your door for ultimate convenience. You are supporting an amazing company and you are supporting local American farmers. And if you're worried about committing to a subscription, you can pause, delay, or cancel it at any time. And with the holidays coming up, guys, now is a perfect time to subscribe to Good Ranchers. And by the way, a subscription also makes the perfect gift. I said that when I was postpartum, like, this would be the most amazing gift for a family that is expecting a new baby. It's the perfect Christmas gift, holiday gift, whatever you need, it is great. So just go to goodranchers.com and use my code Brett to get $100 off your first 3 orders. That's $40 off the first, $30 off the second, and $30 off the third. Plus, you get free meat for life when you subscribe. Again, that is code Brett at checkout at goodranchers.com. But hurry, because this offer ends on December 1st, so do not wait. And guys, you know what would make the holidays even more special? Is knowing that your mortgage in your home is in good hands with Fellowship Home Loans. And Fellowship Home Loans is making homeownership possible for our generation. And I get it, that feels like laughable and impossible in 2025 because prices keep climbing, interest rates are not dropping quickly enough, and it feels like young people will never catch up. But that is why I love and I trust Fellowship Home Loans. The owners, their names are Mike and Brian. They are about getting you in sooner, not someday. They have smart tools like low down payments, first-time homeowner loans, seller concessions, and temporary rate buy-downs, stuff that makes home ownership doable right now, no matter how old you are. And if you already own a home, you could pull out your equity in mere days with some of their programs. That is money for paying off debt, starting a business, or just putting it in your savings account and breathing a little easier. So if you're interested in learning more, just go to fellowshiphomeloans.com/Brett and get a $500 credit at closing. Terms apply. See their site for details. Fellowship Home Loans, mortgage lending by the book. Disclaimer, nationwide mortgage bankers, DBA Fellowship Home Loans, equal housing lender, NMLS number 819382. Now back to the story and back to our good friend, Mark Levin. Later in his speech, Mark also made sure to emphasize that it wasn't just about Tucker and the people that he was platforming. It was about all of us who, like Tucker, are in his audience and anybody who shares these ideas online. Just take a watch.
You think your stupid little podcast, or your stupid little subscription program, or your little TV show, or maybe you have a little radio show, is going to change the world like hell it is?
I mean, thankfully for us, Mark just said the quiet part out loud. They're doing all of this. They're freaking out because of how popular and impactful Tucker is. Your little podcast, your little subscription platform. Like, dude, Tucker right now is the #1 podcaster in the world. He is neck and neck with Joe Rogan. This is projection. Frankly, it is embarrassing. You are exposing that you are absolutely petrified of his influence, and therefore your strategy is to minimize his reach, which is laughable, and then attack him. You are genuinely terrified that the influencers, the podcasters, the commentators who are not backing down, who are not cowering to your very obvious blanket threats of cancellation, are running circles around your numbers. That's the only reason you're calling them little podcasts, little TV shows. And again, listen, that's fine. You have every right to be upset. I get that you're angry. I get that you're worried. You have an uphill battle to fight now, obviously. But you all picked possibly the worst strategy to employ. And not only is it an ineffective strategy and hypocritical, but it is also just gross, because these are the same people who have condemned the far left for their violent rhetoric for years now, especially in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination. And then, this weekend, all of these individuals got on stage and said things like this.
So I just want to say, I feel good about the Republican Party. I feel good about where we're going as a nation. We're killing all the right people and we're cutting your taxes. Trump is my favorite president. We've run out of bombs. We didn't run out of bombs in World War II.
I don't even have words to respond to that right now. So that's Lindsey Graham, who just got up on stage. And he said the Republicans are killing the right people. Like, Lindsey, is that a Freudian slip? Like, do you want to end up on the next episode of Candace's show? Because that's basically where you're heading with this, with these types of jokes. Like, this is not what you should be doing. But Lindsey did not just stop there. This is what he said next.
But if you ever run for office as a Republican and you embrace this weird shit, we're gonna beat your brains out.
This is just absurd. Like, weren't we just talking? Weren't we collectively all outraged and losing our minds over how disgusting it was for Gavin Newsom to sit on his podcast and say that he wanted Democrats to get out in the streets and punch Republicans in the mouth? And he argued that it was him, just being, exaggerating and being emotional. And yet we said, no. This is violent rhetoric. This is completely unacceptable. And now Lindsey Graham is getting on stage and saying that if you are a Republican and you're running for office and you disagree with his take on Israel, anything like that, he will beat your brains out. I mean, again, this is just so incredibly hypocritical. I mean, it's so hypocritical that it is almost laughable. Like, haven't we all collectively sat on our shows, sat on X, and talked about how dangerous it is and how irresponsible it was for leftists to just call anybody they hate a Nazi? I think that that's something that we all could agree with. Now, apparently, that message didn't make its way to the people who were speaking at this conference, especially not to Representative Andy Fine, because this is what he got on stage to say.
Multiple speakers have talked about the rise of anti-Semitism on the right. But it is not enough to speak in platitudes or generalities about the fight. We must call evil by its name. 5 years ago, if I was talking to my father, who's watching, hi Dad, if I was talking to my father at 8:59 p.m. at night, he would say, Randy, I gotta go. Tucker Carlson's gonna be on. But make no mistake, today, Tucker Carlson is the most dangerous anti-Semite in America. He has chosen to take on the mantle of leader of a modern-day Hitler Youth, to broadcast and feature those who celebrate the Nazis, those who call for the extermination of Israel, to defend Hamas, to even criticize President Trump for stopping Iran's nuclear ambitions.
So Tucker Carlson, in Randy Fine's mind, is the modern-day leader of Hitler Youth. I mean, can you not see, again, how incredibly irresponsible this is? This is the same kind of rhetoric, exactly the same, that the left has been using on us for years, that we have been fighting against, pushing back against for years. It is the same kind of inflammatory rhetoric that killed Charlie Kirk. And here you all are employing the exact same thing. You are so blinded by your ridiculous, insane hatred of Tucker Carlson that you cannot see how irresponsible and hypocritical you are being. I mean, these tweets from Ted Cruz, I'm going to read you next, are a great example of this. So just a month ago, he tweeted this. He said, they don't kill you because you're a Nazi. They call you a Nazi so they can kill you. Political violence is a left-wing phenomenon. Enough is enough. We need to shut it down. And then in response to Fuentes and Tucker this week, he tweeted this. Trump's bombing of the Ayatollah's nuclear facilities made the little Nazi mad. Good. So now you're turning around and you're calling somebody that you don't like a Nazi. You're doing this out of blind rage because you're so angry that the conservative base's attitudes are rapidly changing, that Nick Fuentes is getting national attention, and so you have turned around and in response, you are compromising your own values in anger, which is such a dangerous precedent to set. And unfortunately for you guys, yes, the attitudes are changing, so again, it makes sense why this group is incredibly frantic. This is an article here. Take a March 2025 Pew poll as an example. While the survey shows strong support for Israel among GOP voters, it also reveals that more and more younger Republicans are souring on the country. 50% of GOP voters under the age of 50 expressed a negative view of Israel, compared to just 35% in 2022. These numbers line up with a number of recent polls, including an August 2025 University of Maryland Critical Issue Survey, which found that just 24% of Republican voters aged 18 to 34 sympathize more with Israelis than Palestinians. And this is just one of the many surveys on the subject. And so whether you agree with that or disagree with that, whether you love it or hate it, this is just the fact of our current political climate. And guess what? This behavior that we saw on display at this coalition, at this conference, is only going to push more good people away from you and your message because it is so hypocritical, because it is so inflammatory. And I'm obviously upset about what I heard, and I think that what people did on that stage was, dangerous and vile, but this whole thing is also just frankly comical. A room of 200 people coming together to shit on a podcaster. This is not serious behavior. But again, who is surprised when it comes to these characters? Like Randy Fine, if you don't know who he is, he's a representative from Florida. He's the same guy who bragged about not washing his hands after he had a handshake with Netanyahu. He's repeatedly introduced bills to criminalize anti-Semitism, infringing upon free speech. He obviously, I'm sorry to say, but he obviously cares more about Israel than he does, principles like free speech. So, buddy, my advice to you, Randy Fine, is just move to Israel at this point. Considering you had to go through anger management classes a few years ago, I genuinely think you would probably be happier if you just moved to Israel. And that's not a dig at him. That's just a fact. It's a nudge of encouragement. I want everybody to be happy. I want everybody to be healthy. I think you would be happier if you just moved to Israel. You could be over there singing songs with Mike Huckabee.
Sweet home Yerushalayim.
That's Mike Huckabee's take on Sweet Home Alabama, but performed in Israel about Israel. Okay, sorry, I just had to include it because I thought that was just so incredibly funny. And again, the entire thing is funny. I'm just looking at this conference, I'm looking at the state of conservatism, I'm like, this is not a serious movement right now. It is so full of division and finger pointing and anger, and people are compromising their values right and left, again, which is such an awful precedent to set. You cannot act out of anger. You should be focused on solutions and strategy and digging your heels in your principles so that you do not get deterred. And I think that this is such an important lesson even outside of politics, because one of the hardest things in life is not compromising when things get hard, is not going against your values when it would be convenient to. And I think the ability to stand strong in your principles, even when times are hard, is what makes a great person. That is what makes somebody who is, worth following and is worth respecting. And again, it's not just about politics. That could be as you're dealing with a relationship, as you're dealing with work or friendships, whatever it might be. You cannot compromise your principles because it's easier or because you're hurt or because you're angry. That never results in anything positive. At the end of the day, you have to be able to be honest with yourself. You have to have integrity with yourself, and compromising everything that you have stated to believe over years and years and years, that is the complete opposite of all of that. Seriously, guys, my advice would be, if you are so worried about the influence of people like Tucker, you need better PR. You need a better strategy. That is the only thing that is going to help at this point. What is not going to help is threatening cancellation, deplatforming, and turning your back on all of the principles that have made this country great, that make conservatism great. I understand that you're angry. It makes sense. But be better. Be a better leader. Because right now, watching all of those speeches, I feel like I'm watching some episode of Veep or Arrested Development unfold. Because again, it's comical. It is so blatantly hypocritical that it is just comical. We are not a serious movement.